Michael Chandler has been the butt of many jokes recently in the MMA world, mostly due to his persistence to fight Conor McGregor. The post-fight speeches and even the interviews in which he constantly talks about the McGregor fight, always keeping out hope that the fight will one day happen, has caused many to make fun of him for putting his career on hold in the hopes that a rich cokehead decides to fight him. This has also resulted in many questioning his skills as a fighter. His reputation has become that of a madman who goes into the octagon to throw caution to the wind with no regard for the game plan or any sort of strategy. So let's take a look at his fights to see how true this statement is. Chandler earned prominence in Bellator. In Bellator, he's beaten guys like Benson Henderson and has both a win and a loss against Eddie Alvarez. He was also knocked out by Patricio Pitbull, who recently made his UFC debut in a very underwhelming performance. However, accolades outside of the UFC are not given much credit by MMA fans, as the UFC is the big leagues where the competition is at its best and the lights are the brightest. So Chandler made his UFC debut against Dan Hooker at the age of 34. Hooker was ranked 6th at lightweight at the time of the fight, and many believe that Chandler did not deserve this fight in his debut. What happened was one of the best debuts in UFC history, as he scored a brutal knockout over Hooker and had the MMA audience buzzing. He was a fresh face in the division and an easy fighter to root for and get behind. This win was so impressive that it resulted in the UFC making his next fight be for the vacant title against Charles Oliveira. The title was vacant as a result of Khabib Nurmagomedov's retirement. The fight against Charles was a true definition of a roller coaster. After round 1, everyone had felt that he had completely overwhelmed Oliveira and that the fight was most likely going to be stopped sometime in the second round, as Chandler's power and explosiveness was just going to be too much for Oliveira to handle. However, Charles ended up knocking out Chandler only 19 seconds into round number 2. It had felt that Chandler let the biggest opportunity of his career slip right by him, putting this just the beginning of letdowns to come. His next fight was against fan favorite Justin Gaethje. Two exciting fighters with dynamite in their hands, so fans knew this was going to be a potential fight of the year candidate. The fight delivered, and Gaethje ended up defeating Chandler on the scorecards. However, Chandler's stock didn't necessarily take a fall during this time. Many looked at him as a fighter that has all the tools to win, but just values entertainment over winning. His next fight was what made many question his true ability, although they may not have noticed it at the time. This fight came against Tony Ferguson. Ferguson was on a 3-fight losing streak that started with a brutal beating at the hands of Justin Gaethje, then came a 30-26 loss to Charles Oliveira, and then a 30-27 loss to Beneil Dariush. Ferguson had fought in 11 rounds and had not won a single one of them. Then came this fight against Chandler, where Ferguson looked good in round 1 and had won it on the judges' scorecards. He even dropped Chandler with the left hand. In round 2, however, Chandler landed one of the most devastating knockouts, and Tony Ferguson went on to lose his next 4 fights as well, making this a very poorly aged win. His next fight came against Dustin Poirier, which was also advertised as a potential fight of the year candidate, and it also delivered. It was 1-1 headed into round 3, and in the final round, Poirier submitted Chandler. This resulted in many people questioning Chandler's fight IQ, and this will be the reason why he'll never win a championship. Also, this resulted in Chandler having losses in the UFC via knockout, decision, and submission. His next fight did not happen for another 2 years, as he had a fight booked with Conor McGregor. Chandler did not even entertain the idea of other fights, as he did not want anything other than the money fight against McGregor. McGregor continued his antics, and many fans came to the conclusion that McGregor would never step inside the octagon again. Chandler was criticized for wasting his last few years in the sport. He was already an older lightweight, and now he was just wasting the end of his career. It seems that Chandler finally came to his senses and took a fight against Charles Oliveira, the man who had ruined his dreams of becoming the UFC champion. After 2 years of inactivity, Chandler stepped into the octagon and proceeded to lose the first 4 rounds. In round 5, he caught Oliveira with a powerful shot and several punches to the back of the head. However, Charles was able to survive and win a decision. Many fans had already reached a certain point of annoyance with Chandler due to his persistence of wanting to fight McGregor, but now many were labeling him a dirty fighter due to the punches to the back of the head. Poirier also joined in on this, claiming Chandler had done very dirty tactics when they had fought also. His next and most recent fight came against Paddy Pimblett, which was viewed as a do-or-die moment. It was Chandler's time to fight somebody outside of the top 5, and prove that he deserves to stay as high as he's ranked. Guys like Poirier and Gaethje had given chances to guys like Benoit Saint-Denis and Rafael Fiziev, and now it was Chandler's turn to do the same. Pimblett had his doubters coming into this fight, as some believe that he's overhyped and can't hang with the top guys of the division. Pimblett went on to dominate Chandler and knocked him out in round number 3. Chandler was left bloodied and his future now in question. Michael Chandler is now 2-5 in the UFC, with his win over Hooker aging good and his win over Tony aging poorly. However, it is very clear what kind of fighter Chandler is at this point. He's an exciting fighter who the fans will love to see fight even if his record isn't great. The significant wins have just not come, and I think it's safe to say that they won't in the future either. Chandler is no longer a contender in one of the best divisions. Chandler is one of the most exciting fighters the UFC has ever seen, and is dangerous with how explosive and dynamic he is, but his skills and fight IQ aren't up to par in the lightweight division. Michael Chandler is not championship material, but in a sport where many fighters are criticized for being boring, it is okay to appreciate Michael Chandler for what he is.